A few years ago, I got this bag that had dividers in it to hold my drawings. I've thrown a whole bunch of papers into these folders over the years, and most of it has just stayed there and smelled like old paper. I like going back to look at them, but I've never actually shared them with anyone unless they were nosy enough to look without my permission. I spent a lot of time in high school redrawing old pictures from ancient sketchpads, a bunch of random scenes as if they were from a video game. Those sketchpads had a lot of stuff I didn't share much. A lot of it was comedic graphic violence, graphic for a 7-year-old anyway. I had a sick sense of humor growing up. My whole family did, really. For whatever reason, I drew a lot of those pictures with Cool Spot in them, the red dot mascot for 7 Up. I have no idea why I drew him so much, maybe because he was easy to draw. At one point, I gave him an extended family. I think he had like a second cousin, which was a fire ant, and some centipede older brother. Maybe they were just all older brothers or younger brothers, I forgot. Either way, I do remember the youngest baby Cool Spot brother using throwing knives as a weapon. Enemies get stabbed and disappear in a poof of smoke. I had a bunch of sketches for a Hey Arnold game where they fought a bunch of trash can monsters. I have no damn idea where those pictures went though. They were made in 3rd grade and for whatever reason they just disappeared. My biggest regret to this day is not knowing where those drawings went. I went through different mediums with my art the same way an infant throws up different shit it decides to shove in its mouth. Every now and then I draw on notebook paper, not margin doodles. I was never someone to do margin doodles. And for that matter, I never drew those stupid fucking S's that everyone else draws. But yeah, there wasn't a reason really. No lack of white paper to draw it on, just whatever was closest, I guess. I'd also draw in pen, black ink. I wound up having a full 2-pack of black pens on reserve. Turns out I never wound up using them. Pens suck, especially when you see all the misshapen heads I'd scratch out while trying to draw a picture. Okay, maybe not picture, more like character floating in nothing. I'd always draw a lineup of every character design I came up with, just trying to fit as much crap as I could on the page. Most of these pen drawings were a bunch of dumb-looking crap inspired by some games I played around then, like Legend of Legaia or Lunar 2. I'm glad that I never went through a Sonic fan character phase, though, God forbid. But at the same time, I went through a lot of weird sub-phases, like being anime as fuck or just really weird shit. Some of the stuff I can't even show because I actually drew some graphic sexual pictures, but sometimes those have long since been shredded, at least the ones on scrap paper. Oh geez, speaking of weird paper, I also used to have this massive drawing pad. One of the pages that survived is folded up in here, also in blue ink, with such classics as The Masked Man-Ace, Fire Eyes, Evil Vinny, and Stego Ninja. Man-Ace was inspired, well, rip right the fuck off, from the first Time Crisis game, which I'd play the shit out of. I kinda miss all these weird, balls out, insane designs I'd come up with as a kid. Back in elementary school, speaking of old ass pictures, I would always draw video game stuff on anything I had. There was one assignment where we had to draw what was on ourselves, and I just drew monsters from Vector Man. Another one asked what I looked like, and I drew me fighting the second boss fight from Blaster Master. Sadly, those pages are lost to the sand of time, but for the record, the boss was a giant crab. I could never kill that bastard as a kid, and I realize the damn game is too long to bother playing it now. That old school art was a combination of whatever I found cool, like those gradual transformations on the Animorphs book covers, or bathroom humor, like a burp that fires a huge laser, or the 1,000,000 hit middle finger attack. A lot of times I'd draw a level in a video game I had a hard time with, and then draw something that got rid of whatever challenge I was dealing with, like giant springs or a huge gun. I've been putting this one off for a while, and I can't believe I'm actually going to share it. As you can guess by now, I've thrown all sorts of weird characters into stories, one of which was Jammer Goddamn Lammy. Drawing it as if it was a comic that I'd sell, showing prices for each issue on the back cover, inspired by all those Sonic comics I read as a kid. This comic was called The Reign of Jessica, which came from a bit of history I'm not very proud to admit. I had a classmate named Jessica in elementary school who smelled really bad, and was kind of obnoxious. We made fun of her a lot, and I'd draw a lot of pictures of her looking like an ugly monster, with fumes coming off her hair and pointy ears and all that. She was a villain in the comic, and had minions like robots and a sumo wrestling rhino. There were 2 sequels planned for Reign of Jessica, but I only finished one of them. I think Jessica moved out of school from all the times we made fun of her, and looking back I feel like shit for being such a prominent figure in that. During recess one time she came up to me and said she didn't mind all the comics I drew, and I just nodded and kept drawing. Looking back, my stomach turns, thinking that she was probably told to say that as a way to cope with it. Most of the time I just threw myself into whatever story I wrote. The first one of that was called Emerald Tragedy, an almost shameless Sonic ripoff where a bunch of people collected emeralds to restore a bigger one. At first it was just a bunch of random characters as usual, put into levels of a game. I think Sonic 2's Hilltop Zone was in there. The sequel was originally going to be more of the same, but I lost the early papers on a bus, back when I still took the bus home from school. So I decided to remake it, but with me, a friend, and someone I hated from school as main characters. Needless to say, my character had the most happen to him, meeting this girl and fighting demons and robots. And I made the guy I hated, Jared, get his ass kicked a lot. I'd even say the scenes aloud during class to get him to react. There were 5 total Emerald Tragedy games. The third one had Earthworm Jim as a character, and Jared was brainwashed by the new villain, Queen Shirley. I snap him out of his mind control by blowing him the fuck away. Don't worry, he's just unconscious. The fourth Emerald Tragedy was a blatant ripoff of Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, with masks in a field, but I don't think there was a moon. No, I saved the moon for Emerald Tragedy 5, where the villain summons a meteor to crash within 72 hours. So, a combination of Final Fantasy VII and Majora's Mask. The villain for the fifth one, Artemis, went through 3 ideas. The first one was this big burly shadow dude, kinda like Ganondorf. The second one was a scrawny and looked like Frieza from Dragon Ball Z. I forget if I still have those drafts or not. The final version looked like DBZ's Cell, at least with the black wings. He was an alien corpse who got mixed with some chemical X-type deal and got really smart. Since he built an android who was even stronger than him. Jim and my friend were MIA. All my partners were girls who I fought in the previous games. Things got DBZ as hell after that, and I went all Super Saiyan and grew muscles and fired energy beams. Self-serving is one way to put it. I stopped working on Emerald Tragedy stories to make my other big project. During 5th grade camp, I decided to draw this game called Backyard Adventure, inspired by the days when me and my bro walked around our backyard when we first moved to Missouri. In the game, I take a lap around the lake, fighting monsters as we were wont to do as kids, and I came back to find an evil monster that looked suspiciously like Ganondorf again, and fought to the death. Then I went to another dimension and fought this thing that had way too many pecs. I met this weird naked fairy who eventually grew fur when she returned for the second game. Backyard Adventure 2 is my biggest game. The folder it's in has so much bulk it's a little insane. The majority of it is my story, of course, fighting new villains, even though my backyard doesn't show up until the very end, albeit with a giant fortress from space in the middle of the lake. I even have me asking, oh no, zombies, but why has my backyard changed so much? One of the villains was a blatant Chaos ripoff from Sonic Adventure, and the other one, Zorka, doesn't get named until the end where he takes his shirt off. The Chaos knockoff, Wartro, winds up being the main villain, and flings me into the future after 3 other characters have their own quests. So yeah, it's even more like Sonic Adventure. It'd be nice actually redrawing some of these ideas when I get the chance, when I don't have things I have to do that get in my way, like making an 8-minute video about what I want to do. Oh snap!